Hello, everybody, and welcome to the chat. I'm Carrie with Science Gal Aquatics, and today I have a extra special guest here tonight, and I'm super excited to get to talk to you. It's John with KGTropicals and keepfishkeeping.com, correct?
There it is. Yes, you got it.
I'm trying to remember. Your website does look really good, by the way. It does.
Thank you.
It looks really good. So
Thank
good
you.
job.
I'm really happy with it. I was very unhappy with it when we first launched it, but now I'm thrilled with it. So yeah, thank you for the compliment.
Well, tonight I really just want to pick your brain about everything you know about Silver Arowanas, because I moved upstairs tonight for the stream so you can see my guy. I'm assuming it's a guy at least, and it's been quite the learning curve.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you had any starting off just common questions that you get a lot about Silver Arowanas, or if you just have any like favorite topics that you want to talk about first.
Well, of course, the number one topic about arowanas is always going to be tank size. I mean,
yes.
that's, we could do an entire hour on that. Tank mates are another thing that a lot of people ask questions about. And you and I were just discussing before we went live. I'm having quite the issue with that right now. And then, it's funny because with that particular fish, people don't usually ask questions about like water parameters and all that kind of stuff. And it makes sense because they could, they're pretty hardy. I mean, they can go in almost any water parameters. Now, that doesn't mean put them in salt water, but they're very, very adaptable to water parameters. So most of the questions are about food, tank mates, and of course tank size. And then to go on from that, it would be like, how big do they need to be before I add tank mates and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's plenty to talk about.
Yeah, because I have questions about every single topic you just mentioned.
Good. Well, bring it on. I'm excited. I mean, anybody that's known me longer than 5 minutes knows that that's my fish. So I'm ready to go.
Well, I guess the first question, I got my arowana a while ago, and I bought him with a tank mate when he was really small. He fit in a 10-gallon at the time. So do you recommend getting them small? And if you're going to add tank mates, get them all at the same time? Or am I safe to go ahead and try to add something now since he doesn't have a tank mate anymore besides a large pleco?
Well, there's a lot of people that would tell you the fish is gorgeous on its own. Just leave it in there by itself, and I'm not going to argue with that either. I'm not a believer in if you grow fish up together, they're going to always be okay. Now, if you have a spawn of betas and they all grow up together, we all know that's doable. But you put an Oscar with a green terror or an arowana for that matter, and you put them both in small and they grow up together, that doesn't necessarily mean they're always going to be friends. At least that's my belief.
Right.
So where you're at right now with that fish, with the size that it is, and I also say it because I don't know the differences between.
I'm not sure.
I've tried so hard to figure it out, and I just can't. But the problem that you have now, or the challenge that you have now, is that fish is a good size. I mean, it looks, just seeing it in there, it looks 20 inches or so.
Yeah, it's definitely at least 1.5 feet at least now.
Yeah, it's a good size. So you're going to have to get something that's a decent size, maybe somewhere around half the size of him. And so, if you're going to take an Oscar, let's just say, and put a 10-inch Oscar in with that, then you're going to have the risk of not only is the arowana going to get along with the Oscar, but is the Oscar going to want to tear up the arowana, which is actually a problem that I'm having right now, is my Oscars, who I adore so much, are just absolutely brutalizing one of my arowanas. So that's the challenge now. You're kind of at that place where if you did have them grow up together, at least they would be growing at that same rate. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You're not introducing a big fella in there with that arowana who's already got the tank to himself and it's all his. So I guess the best time would be when they're both small. That would be the easiest, but that doesn't guarantee anything.
No. Well, and my concern, because I'm super protective, and one of my like favorite parts about him has been watching him grow too. But with adding a tank mate, it's going to have to be a decent size. I don't necessarily have anywhere to quarantine a fish that large besides my goldfish, and they're not very big yet. And I'm so scared of him getting sick that I'm almost, but the only reason why I kind of want to add a tank mate is because I feel like he's getting more aggressive or just more moody or grumpy without a tank mate.
Right.
So it's one of those, like, what do you do? There's no wrong thing to do, but there's not really.
I did a whole video about exactly what you're talking about, like with the quarantine of big fish. You know, what do? You told me before we started here that that's a 180 gallon tank, which I'm assuming is 6 by 2 by 2. Is that the measurement of that?
It takes up most of this wall. So I haven't measured it in a while, but it's large. It's a large tank.
The standard 180 is.
Yeah, it's the standard one. So whatever you said is right.
Yeah. So I don't even know where I was going with that. But oh yeah, you know, when you have a fish that's the size of yours and you want to add a tank mate that is going to be, 10 inches long or something around there, where are you going to put it to quarantine it? And I did a whole video about that. Like I have some big tanks. I mean, this one, which is off camera, 240 gallon. I have two 125s, but I don't have anywhere where I can quarantine a 2 foot long fish. Yeah. So, that is a challenge. And it's one of those things that with monster fish keepers, it's part of the deal. Kids are going to do what they're going to do. My two little kids that are sleeping next to me are probably going to make some noise here soon.
Yeah, the dogs are either barking or the kids are yelling. It's just the story of just keep on going.
Believe me, I get it.
And like talking about tank size, when I got this guy, I just assumed it was going to be super simple to find large tanks whenever I wanted to find them. And now that I need them, I'm finding that it's not as hard to find them. So he's still fine. He still has plenty of turning room, but there's going to be a point where even he's going to outgrow this tank. Right. So do you usually just find them for sale used? Because I re-silicone this tank too. It took me 2 tries, but I did get it. So I'm even up to like cleaning up something if it's larger and this kind of just needs resealed. But where do you find your larger tanks? I know you've done the custom route, I believe.
Yeah, the 360, my 360 is 8 feet long, and that was custom built for me. So, easy to find that one. But I actually I don't know how long you've been following my channel, but very early on, when I first started my channel, in fact, I think it makes an appearance in my very first video. I had a tank just like yours, except 2 feet longer. So it was 8 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet.
Yes.
I found that tank. This is a crazy story. I found that tank on Craigslist, and it was advertised as a 150 gallon tank.
Right. Yeah.
It was in it's a 240, but it was advertised as a 150. This guy didn't know what he had. It was on the floor of a nail salon. And I went there, picked it up. And the second I looked at it, I said, that ain't no 150. That's a 240 all day long. What is that?
Jesse's fiddling with the lid.
Oh, I was going to say, what is happening with your lid?
I'm upstairs. Apparently he fed it a grasshopper. He acts
good.
Like that when he gets fed grasshoppers. You never know. I'm upstairs. I wanted to try to show off the fish, but that comes with family.
I understand. But anyway, yeah, I found that on Craigslist, and it was advertised as a 150. It was a 240, and I paid $200 for that tank, which is ridiculous. Now, it was beat up. It had been used as a turtle tank. I just wanted it for my arowanas. That's all I cared about. It didn't matter to me what it looked like. It was going to be going in my garage. I definitely would not have put that tank in my main living area. But the answer to your question is Craigslist. That's where I have found multiple 6 foot long tanks, and then the original 240 that I had. And sometimes what you have to do is you have to broaden your search on Craigslist.
Mhm.
to go, maybe a little past where you live, not just search the area you live, but maybe
Mhm.
you need to drive a couple hours or something like that. You might
Yeah.
be able to find that diamond in the rough like I did.
Yeah, that's how this one is. It kind of fell into my lap. Our local nursing home was upgrading, and they contacted the fish store, and then the fish store was like, I know just the person to call. But they had someone like purple spray paint, and it had been outside for a little while or something like that, and everything was just broken down. The glass was still good. It's a little scratched, but we re-siliconed it and just
Cross your fingers.
yeah. We practiced on a few smaller tanks over the years to kind of build up, but everything's going well. But
Yeah, mine actually, the one I was just talking about leaked. It had a small leak, of course, on one of the bottom seals, and that was horrifying. But same thing. I just resealed it, and it wasn't that big of a deal. But it didn't leak the second I got it. It didn't leak till like 6 months later. But that's when you're buying a used tank, you actually run that risk no matter how old.
No matter what, yeah,
you're asking a little bead of silicone to hold thousands of gallons or pounds of water, but 6 months later it popped. What are you going to do? And it wasn't like my whole house flooded. It was in my garage, and it was just a little drip, drip, drip. So I caught it in time. But it's the risk you take in this hobby, not just buying used tanks, but any tanks.
Well, and he likes to jump a lot. I think he gets bored, or he just likes to see me run. He just jumps and splashes a lot. So I'm always running in here in hopes of like, please be okay. Because that sound of just.
Yep. And you wonder, like, how did that fish not injure himself?
Well,
because they bang so hard.
He does. There's times where I come in there and he's okay, but he's definitely scratched up. So, and his nose is a little beat up sometimes, or a scale. But
I think that you have the water down a little bit. I mean, that's smart.
Yeah.
That's got to be helping.
Yeah, it seems like it looks further down on camera than it actually is, but I'm afraid that if I give him too much like upward momentum, like room, but he jumps all the time. So, and have you ever got bit by one?
Oh yeah.
He likes to try to I've learned that if you water change, if you just keep your fingers out of the water, because it must look like really good tasty worms or something. So when you aquarium back, because I have to go here, so it's always dirty. But keep your fingers out of the water. Just keep your fingers out of the water.
I don't have the problem with mine now because I don't have any substrate in mine. So I can literally just like dangle the hose in there to get the stuff off the bottom and stuff like that. It's not really an issue. But with my old 240 that we were just talking about, I actually had one of those long siphon hoses. And so my hands would be out of the water, and it was for that reason. When they're smaller and they bite you, it's like, oh, that's cute. But when they get to be the size of yours, they can start breaking skin, and it's
like it doesn't hurt, but you definitely know that you got bit.
It's more the shock of it. It's like, oh my God, he just bit me. Like,
because that's he jumps. And then if he jumps, I'm automatically concerned.
Yep.
But what kind of lid do you have? Because right now I just have, it's like probably of a 1/4 of an inch piece of glass. And it's like two, I guess, whatever it came with, 2 panels. And I try to keep like stuff. Usually it's not that clean up top. Usually it's a catch-all because I'm just weighting everything down. But do you have any recommendations? Because he does jump a lot, whether it's for fun, to eat, or whatever. And sometimes he does get a little banged up, or just keep the glass.
If you're using 1/4 inch glass, which most bigger tanks like yours are going to have that 1/4 inch tank. Both of my big tanks have them. You should be good. The biggest problem is when you forget to close the lid, which I've done. And then you come out the next day and your Arowana is hard as a brick on the floor. I've done that. And then also, like, I've told the story a million times how I had a 30-inch, I called him a male. Like you, I don't know if it was a male or not, but he was a he to me. He was 30 inches. He was massive. And I've told the story a million times, and I've said he broke the lid. It was 1/4 inch lids. And I'm kind of misspeaking when I say that. The way the lids were on that tank, it was a big square of glass that covered the majority of the tank. And then
Mhm.
there was a little slit. We all have that little 4-inch piece of
Yeah.
glass that we open up to feed the fish. That
Mhm.
little piece right there, what my fish did was he jumped kind of at the corner. I'm assuming this is what happened. He jumped
Mhm.
towards the corner of it, and it made the lid pop up and then fall down into the tank.
Uh-huh.
So having that seam protected is important, because that little sliver of glass that we open up to feed our fish, that doesn't weigh all that much. And when you get a
No.
fish that's 30 inches, it can knock that off just like mine did. So
Mhm.
if you have that plastic hinge, that's enough. But mine didn't have that. Mine just had
Mhm.
these 1/4 inch. I actually made the lids myself. I had a tank break, and I cut the pieces of glass, and I made 1/4 inch thick glass lids for this.
Mhm.
So I didn't have that little hinge. And so the two pieces were just independent, and he was able to knock that one off.
Mhm.
So the thicker, the better. I haven't heard stories of arowanas jumping through the glass, like shattering the glass and breaking through. I've never heard that, but I
Uh,
have heard them, like, and I've experienced it myself, them knocking the lid off.
yeah.
So
He
having,
moved it, but it hasn't felt like moved enough to where he's gotten out. But he's definitely getting to the point where he can move it a little bit if he hits it that hard, which he does often.
I would just, particularly on the small pieces in the front that you
Mhm.
open to feed them, I would make sure that that has some weight on it. It doesn't have to be a boulder, something to keep the weight down on there, so that he can't pop it open. Because they can do that. They can pop them open, uh,
Mhm.
and just keep some weight on there so that that can happen. Then you should be good. But when you're in the world of arowanas, you just don't know.
Yeah, and I had no business getting him when I did because I've kept bigger cichlids in the past, but I didn't know what I was doing back then at all. Like I
Mhm.
just winged it.
Right.
And so when I walked in and I saw him, I fell in love. So we've learned to get along. It's been an adventure, but when you feed, how do you know when you fed too much? Or is that even possible? Because I feel like I feed him and feed him and feed him, and he's never he's never going to turn down food. But I do try to feed him as much as possible because the pleco needs some meaty diet too, but
Mhm.
it seems like nothing gets too far past him. So I'm trying to it's a mess. Is there a cutoff or do you just feed
Well,
whatever?
you can't use the standard that you would with other fish. Like if you have
No.
a tank full of Danios, you put food in there, and if they're not eating it after 30 seconds, they're done, or a minute, whatever time frame you use. You can't use that with arowanas, because
Mhm.
they're hunters. They're going to swim around, they're going to prowl the food, and then they're going to pounce on it. So it's one of those things. For me, I've always just kind of, like, when there's not a whole lot of food left over, I know I've given that much, and that's what I'll consistently give.
Uh-huh.
And right now I'm talking a whole bunch of mess, because Lisa actually feeds my fish for me. But so she's the one that's doing that. But it's, we're putting all of this in, and after a couple of minutes between the 6 fish that I have in there and the pleco,
Uh-huh.
um, if it's all gone, then it's like, okay, maybe we'll give a little bit more. But just through trial and error, you figure out that right amount to put in
Uh-huh.
there. But with ours, we actually struggle because we have Oscars in there, and
Uh-huh.
anybody that has ever had an Oscar, they all know that they're just absolute gluttons. So we have to feed the Oscars first, and
Uh-huh.
then when they're literally, like, food is hanging out of their mouth, then we can feed the arowanas. So, or I shouldn't say we, Lisa feeds the arowanas. So it's like a whole process with them.
Uh-huh.
But
Well, do
it's
you have any like staple foods that you feed them? Any type of favorites, or do you just feed whatever you feel like and they never get fed the same food twice? Type.
Oh no, I don't live in that world. I wish I could, but no. It's the 3 things that I like the most to give to that entire tank, all of the fish in that tank, is freeze dried krill,
Okay.
like jumbo krill. I actually have some krill that I'm getting ready to package up and sell on my website. But the Tetra Jumbo Krill, which is super expensive, but it's really, really good. I buy the big coffee can size of those. I think it's like $35 off Amazon or something like that for the big can. I use that. I use the Hikari carne sticks, the jumbo carne sticks, and then frozen shrimp. In a perfect world, I like finding cocktail shrimp, the ones that are only like this big because they're perfect. Throw them in whole. But if they're big jumbo shrimp, I'll cut them up into smaller pieces and put them in there.
Do you feed anything outside insect-wise?
I don't regularly, but I have in the past. I mean, just like he just did with the grasshopper. I mean, I've done that. And it's
well, I threw such a fit in the beginning, and then I thought about it. I was like, well, that's what they eat. So I'm sure, because I'm so protective that I was like, don't walk in the vicinity of the fish stick. This is the dining room, so I had to get over that. But the kids really, and Jesse really likes when they find night crawlers or little things on the porch. And I think he appreciates it because he gets a little bit, I still feed a little bit of live food, but I don't feed it but once or twice a year. And then insects. And then I have some koi sticks, but they're like veggie sticks. He likes the veggie rounds that I feed the pleco, and then bloodworms, anything frozen. I throw a lot of frozen. But do you have experience with drop eye? Because he does have drop eye in one eye really bad. And I feel like it's too much fat in their diet or something, but I'm not really sure if I haven't read anything where anybody knows officially, but I didn't know if, I feel like it's common, but if you have experience with it, if there's anything, because it's not getting worse, but it's definitely not gotten any better.
I have experience in it, and I have zero experience in getting rid of it.
Yeah, because I don't think you can.
I don't think you can. And I mean,
take the eye out.
Right. I mean, I have heard that there's some kind of surgery that can be done. I mean, who's going to do that? I'm not going to operate on my fish, but it
doesn't seem to hurt him. But it just, I don't know if it does or not.
My personal opinion, and I could certainly be wrong, I don't think it hurts them. I think it's more of a nuisance thing. Yeah, you look at it and you're like, oh, that fish is always looking down, but it's not. I don't know anything, but in my opinion, it's not something that hurts them. I think that, there's a lot of people that say always feed floating food, don't have a lot of stuff going on underneath them that they want to look down at, which I'm breaking that rule because I have 4 other fish in there that are, kind of all over the place. So my fish are looking down a lot at them. I guess what a lot of people would say is, always have them looking up. So they're looking up at the food and all of that. But how can you do that? I mean, in a perfect world, maybe you could, but
I don't know. I felt like that's my reasoning behind putting, it's only like a ½ inch substrate. It's very little substrate at the bottom, but I was like, I felt like making it black was good. So the light would be up. But it hasn't. I don't think he cares.
Yeah, I've had arowanas with blue gravel. I've had them with sand. I've had them with bare bottom, like I have now. And I feel like the drop eye is one of those things that I don't know. I just don't know that we in the hobby can actually prevent it. We certainly can't do anything about it once it happens. But to prevent it, I just don't know that there is that trick out there, because most people aren't going to have a situation like yours where the fish is in there by themselves. They're going to want multiple fish like I have. Yeah. So you're always going to have fish swimming around underneath the arowanas. So they're always going to be looking down. What are you supposed to do? Hey, look up here. You can't make them do that. So I keep looking off here. I'm supposed to be getting a delivery, and I have my Ring doorbell I'm looking at to see my deliveries here.
What kind of lights do you like? Because I have one light that's connected to my phone, and it's really helpful. And the lights I have on this particular tank are just the old tube light tanks or lights that you used to get. Do you have any favorites that aren't crazy expensive that you can connect really easy, because my problem is learning how to turn off the lights manually. I will never remember to turn off the lights. And this tank does pretty good because I turn it off more often than the ones downstairs in the fish room. But do you have any favorite lights that you put on your tanks? Or do you even connect them to your phone?
I do have a couple. We've got the Kessels and the Current, and then that one is a Fluval 3.0. The reef, it's a reef one. So I don't use that though. I mean, I have it, it's there, but I don't use it. That one I just turn off manually. I've got on my 240 here, I've got Coral Life, again, reef lights, which the reef lights are really, really good for African cichlids because they really make that blue pop and all that. So, and those have a remote. I just use the remote. So do I have a favorite? I've got Fluval, Kessel, Current, Marine Land, Coral Life, Aqueon. I think I've got every light brand in the world. I'm not a light snob.
I like to try all. I'm a gadget person. So if it's a gadget, especially aquarium related, I'm like, ooh, I want to try it. Whether I hate it or not, I'm like, I still like aquarium gadgets. They're still fun to use and play with.
Yeah, and that's definitely true. I mean, I like the fact that these lights hook up to Bluetooth and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, it's like I'm sitting right here. I'm not going to pull up my phone and open up the app. And it's like I can just turn around and turn it off. You know, it's not something that
I can't. I can't turn around and turn it off. I'm incapable of turning off an aquarium manually.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's just become kind of like a routine, you know, especially on Lisa's side. I have a lot of tanks, a lot of the beta tanks and stuff like that. We don't turn the lights on all that much because it's like, why? Betas don't care.
Yeah.
The goldfish don't care. So, you know, but it's just a routine at night down here. Most of our tanks are down here, all but 3 of our tanks are down here. And I just walk through and I just manually turn them all off, whichever ones Lisa hasn't turned off. And in fact, this is embarrassing. The Kessels, I just hit my microphone. The Kessels, which have a full controller and all this fancy stuff that you would love, we just unplug those because it's like you got to push this button, slide this over, move this down. It's like, no, and I'm wrong. Actually, that one we don't unplug. It's on a power strip by itself. We just turn the whole power strip off.
Just turn it off.
And that's easy enough. We're never really messing with the settings or anything on those. The Current USA ones, which you kind of have to use the app, we're just like, forget that. We just unplug them. And it's not because it's bad. It's just, to me, it's easier to just unplug them and walk away than it is to open up the app. And I sound like an old man here, but you know, it's faster to just unplug them. But
we did get a 99-cent super sticker from Kaler's Aquatics. Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I was watching your video a while ago about aquarium heater. I'm not sure when you put it out about aquarium heaters. And since moving the fish room, that we're going to slide off topic a little bit, but downstairs, I don't feel like I need them as much because just the room itself is warmer. Do you find since you've moved kind of downstairs, you don't need as much extra heat in your tank? Or has there been a difference?
I mean, I have heaters in the tanks that really need them, like the discus tank, the African tank, which, I mean, the Africans would be, I keep pointing to them, you can't even see them, but they would be okay with the room temperature. And obviously the goldfish are fine, and the betas. So really the ones that it's critical for down here are the discus tank and this one over here. And so we run heaters in those. The other ones, it's probably about the same. I mean, we kept the garage at like 77 or so degrees. Down here, it's not quite as warm because I'm down here all the time. I wasn't out in the garage all the time. But I mean, we're not really having any issues with temperature down here.
No.
So
How warm do you keep your Arowana tank?
78.
78. That's about what I try. This room, it used to be the garage, and we turned it into the dining room, or at least Jesse turned it into the dining room.
Nice.
So it's a little bit just naturally colder in here because it's drafty. So sometimes I do have to turn that up a little bit more in the winter. But since I've taken so many of the heaters out of the tanks downstairs, I want to keep the rice fish and the white clouds outside all winter if I can. But in case it gets too cold, then I have all these extra heaters that I can use, but I've never tried them outside. But I feel like in my head it will work. But in here, I do try to keep. I don't keep it as warm at all in the summer. Like I barely use it right now, but in the wintertime, I do have to turn it on a little bit more. But that's the temperature I kind of shoot for too.
That'll certainly happen down here too. I don't even know when it was that we moved all of our tanks down here. It's weird how time flies.
I know.
I think it was like, I don't know. I don't even know when it was, but I don't think we've been through a full winter yet with all of these down here. And with it being a basement, the basement's completely underground in this house. So I'm sure the heaters will work a little bit more then. And it's a tile floor, you know, there's not a whole lot of like natural things to warm the room up. So with it being a basement, I'm sure we'll have to use it more. But where do you live? I mean, I don't even know where you're at. You're
right
central.
in the middle of Missouri.
Okay.
I'm right in the middle of the country.
So
like right in the middle.
Super cold there though, right?
It gets cold, but not like Iowa. Above Iowa, it gets way colder than here. But we've been getting more ice. But it gets cold. It gets pretty cold. There's some days it's like negative like 10, maybe at the most 8, 2. But then I listen to everybody in Canada and I feel like I shouldn't be whining or up north. But in the summer it gets like 100, 102 maybe at the most here. So it's just all kinds of everything weather-wise here in Missouri. You never really know.
That's how it is here too. I mean, we never get negative anything here. Yeah, I think I'd probably have to move if the temperature ever went below 0 here. I hate the cold, but
Jesse works in Iowa during the winter. They ship them out basically weeks at a time, and it gets way colder just one state up than it does here. But I feel like it's super cold. But then I listen to everybody else. I'm like, okay, I shouldn't complain. But filter-wise, oh, go ahead.
I have to plug my computer in. Go ahead. I just realized my laptop wasn't plugged in, and it's probably gonna. It's still at 40-something%, so it's not gonna die. But I'm gonna.
Well, pretty much everything you say you have, minus the mic. I got a different mic. I just got because I was like, if it works for you. Thank you, Lisa, for sending me a Facebook. I was like, is this the right webcam? I even got the little fancy stand that moves up and down. It's the only time I use it. It's Friday, but I like it, so thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm reaching over here to plug this in. I remember her asking me about that, and I her to send to you. So yeah, I'm glad that worked out. I was
so scared to start live streaming. I was like, well, if I let it be known that I'm looking for stuff, maybe it will motivate me to start. And then if I buy the stuff, then I really have to be motivated to start.
Yeah, once you start getting money involved, then you have to do it. You're obligated at that point.
I was like, now I got to keep doing it. But it's so fun, but I'm so shy that it's so outside my box. But I'm really glad I started because you get to have some really great conversations, especially since we can't go anywhere and meet up in person at the moment. So it's like the next best thing.
You've said that twice now that you're shy. I've met you in person, and then on here, I never thought you were shy.
Oh, I'm painfully shy, but I have to like that internal dialogue that's like, you can do it. Speak. And then I'm like, one step. And then Jesse's like, stop freaking out. Breathe. And I'm like, I can do it. Then I do it.
Well, you've obviously come a long way. You seem very comfortable with it now. So
getting there.
It's a scary thing. I mean, I get it. And to me, the scariest thing is what kind of technical difficulties am I going to have, like last night, That's talking in front of people doesn't scare me, but you know, is the computer going to crash? Is this going to happen? Is the internet going to go out? That's what keeps my anxiety up for sure.
Yeah. Last Sunday I had a live stream and it was no joke. 5-10 minutes right before we started, the whole street utilities just went down. And I was like, what do I do? I was like, just get the phone and try the phone. And if it looks bad, at least you're following through with some kind of game plan.
I have done that exact thing. Get the phone, go out into my van. I went out into my van and I did my live stream out there, and people loved it. I thought they were crazy, but they loved it. So.
I feel like showing up's half the battle. If you can get it to look good, that's great. But showing up, just bear with me. I'll get there. I'll learn it. I'll figure it out, but bear with me. I'm here.
I've been streaming for a long time, and I still don't have it to where I think it looks good. I'm getting another tank, and that'll be in my backdrop, and that'll help. But yeah, I don't know that we ever will truly be happy with what we're doing. I don't think anybody will.
Like this tank behind me, it bugs me. I really want it to look a little bit prettier and more aquascaped, but there's no point because if I put anything in it, it's the pleco that destroys the plant. I have one little sliver of a hierophilia plant left that's like a little twig now, but there's not a whole lot I don't think I can do because
and arowanas will tear stuff up too. I mean, they'll definitely.
It's funny. He likes to do just like when I got the heater or I upgraded the filter to an FX4 because of, I think it was your videos and River Life's videos. We were talking about filters and I was like, I must have this filter. And if you put something in it, he likes to do laps around like a heater cord or go behind the little filter. He'll just do laps around it. And I don't know if he's just scoping it out or if he hates it, but he's got to investigate for a while if you add anything new. And every once in a while he'll swim down and like nip at the cave or something, but
and I used to find, because like I used to try to keep stuff with my arowanas, and every morning I would come around and they would all the plastic plants and stuff. This was decades ago. And what I found was you would throw in a shrimp or something, and then the shrimp would end up sinking and it would land right next to a plant. And then the arowana would go down and hit the shrimp. And that's when the plant would get dislodged and end up floating. So it wasn't necessarily that the fish was grabbing the plant and pulling it out like Oscars do. It was more like kind of an inadvertent thing. But you know, so I'm somebody that I love heavily decorated tanks.
They're beautiful.
Looking at them, I don't love taking care of them. I just like looking at them. And when it comes to my personal tanks, I'm a big fan. Maybe it's my old age. I love the barren look. I love the fish being the decor. That's just, maybe it's my laziness. I don't know, but that's just what I like.
I went really simple on the goldfish tank. I moved the goldfish. It's one of those goldfish is my oldest. It's probably close to 13 years old now. I've had it forever. And I did the sand and just kind of did a really simple so they stand out. And I put a brighter light on there, and there's colors in those fish that I never even noticed before that I was like, wow. Just kind of getting away from everything that was kind of standing. It was just kind of muting it out a little bit.
This tank here, the only reason that piece of driftwood is in there is to hold that air stone. If I didn't want that air stone in here, I would not have even put that piece of driftwood in there. I mean, that tank was completely bare until then. So yeah, I like the barren look.
It looks good. I've been trying new things over the years, but I always had gravel. It was like the one thing. I just got pea gravel, and that's what I always did. And then when I stumbled upon your videos, I've been watching your videos for a while now, is when I kind of branched out and was like, you can do sand and all this stuff. And I was watching like how to learn how to clean it properly, because I would always suck up all the sand. And I was like, how do you do this without sucking up all the sand? But it's lovely because I have a handful of goldfish and then an iridescent shark in there that I've been growing out for years. It seems like it grows, but it grows really slow. But it's always kind of tucked up. It comes out when I turn off the light, but it always looks a little bit dirty, but they stand out so well. Their colors stand out so much more.
Well, and that's, to me, that's the beauty of an aquarium, is the fish standing out like that, and just the fish being the focal point. In my opinion, there is nothing more attractive in the fish keeping hobby than an Asian arowana by itself with nothing else in the tank. That's the most beautiful thing in the aquarium hobby. Of course, I'll never have it, but that's the best thing. And that was the first thing that drew me to fish keeping. So that's what got me to fall in love with it. So of course, still to this day, I wish I could do that.
Yeah, they're beautiful fish. But the first, like every time I walk into the fish store, I fall in love with a new fish. And it's the first time I've seen something. But when I walked in and saw this guy, even being so little bitty, I was like, wow. I was like, I must have them, because it came in a duo. And that I never had kept. It was a black featherfin knife fish. I had never, and that fish was the most entertaining fish ever to watch. I was so fascinated, but I think it was the pleco. It didn't make it, because that pleco kind of swims every once in a while and tries to attach to whatever it can swim next to. But I was really surprised how much I just love those just knife fish. And I would have never known until I tried to keep one.
Yep. It's amazing how fast that happens. You not even thinking about something, and then you walk into the fish store and everything changes. It happens to all of us.
Yeah, and seeing so many different fish on your channel and some other like YouTube channels, you see these fish that I'm like, oh my gosh, I love them. But I never thought in my wildest year like I would ever see them in person. And that was one that was kind of the same way. I was like, I see them, I love them, but I'll never have a chance to buy one. And so when I did, I was like, whether I had any business buying it or not, I was like, I must try this. But I would sit up at night and just watch him. I was so scared that something was going to happen. And I've tried so many different lids when it was a smaller tank, from like the plastic to, I don't even know what it's called. It's kind of rigid. I don't even know what it's called. It's kind of like an egg crate stuff, but just all kinds of just experimenting over the years. And every time I end up just getting a more simple tank, and I just keep taking more and more stuff out of it. But as long as he's happy, I'm happy, even though I feel like half the time he hates me.
Nothing wrong with that. Let the fish be the decoration.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, let the fish be the decoration.
Yeah, because it's in the dining room, and we don't have company very often. Once in the blue moon, even before all of this happened, we didn't have company very often. But when we do, everybody comes up and is like, wow, like what is that? That's a beautiful. And of course they have to tap on the glass, and I'm like the most polite I possibly can, be like, stop, don't do that. Or because the table, they reached their chair and they accidentally hit it with the chair, and I'm like, don't do that. But it's always a centerpiece, and it gets people talking, whether I mean it or not. It's like everybody starts talking about all the fish, especially this arowana, and then we feed them, and it's a whole new can of wow.
Yep. I had that same experience with stingrays. And I've actually entertained the idea, and I'm not making any official announcements or anything like that, but because of what we have going on in our tank right now with our Oscars being just tyrants to the arowanas, I've got a big tank coming. It's not going to be here for a while, but I've entertained the idea of putting all of the cichlids in that, the Oscars and the Severums, and then maybe getting some stingrays to put into with the arowanas. They'll be on the bottom. The arowanas will be on the top. The stingrays were that for me. Now, I love my arowanas, don't get me wrong, but the stingrays are the thing that people come in and they see, and we don't have company all that often either, but they come in and they see it and they're like, I didn't know you could keep those in an aquarium. Like, a stingray, that's crazy. So you want to talk about a conversation starter. Oh boy.
Yeah, that was definitely one that I when I started like participating in fish tube and everything, that's like, I didn't know that you could keep them. And if you did keep them, I just automatically thought they were saltwater. So
Right.
when I saw them going to Aquashella, that was the one time I've seen them, that I was like, these are awesome. But this tank is in no way big and like wide enough, or you said the depth.
Well,
This
it's
way.
2 feet, isn't it? I mean, some of the smaller rays would be able to
Yeah,
fit.
it would fit this spot, but in my head they get ginormous. They just, in my head, they get ginormous. And this guy's, I'm scared that he's gonna get too big. And I don't want to get to the point where I like donate him to an aquarium or anything. I want to keep him as long as I possibly can. But one giant fish like this is probably all I can handle right now.
Oh, I get it. And, you know, I don't know if it'll make you feel any better or not, but you're doing a whole lot better than most people do with that fish. And I'm not talking about people on fish tube, because most
No.
people, if they're doing the wrong thing with an arowana, they're not going to put it on.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not talking about people in fish tube. I'm just talking about people across the hobby.
Uh-huh.
I don't know this for fact, but I would imagine most people that keep arowanas are not doing as good as you or I are doing, you know, a 6-foot or an 8-foot tank. Most people are putting them in 55s, 75s. So, you know, you're giving them that extra 2 feet. You're doing that fish has a better life, most likely, than it would have if anybody else had bought it.
Well, he eats better than I do probably on certain days. I'm like, oh, I'll feed myself a $1 cheeseburger, but my fish, they're getting like top of the line bloodworms. I'm one of those people, I'm not gonna lie. My animals are very well, at least to my best ability. I might not know everything, but at least I try. But he's been in a 10-gallon, a 20 long, a 55, and then this one. So he's grown. And even now I'm already like constantly surfing like the marketplace for used tanks, just in the off chance I like find a deal. But
well, you know, the thing is, I would love to know, and we'll never know this, but I would love to know like the actual percentage of people that are putting arowanas in the actual appropriate size tanks. I bet you it's probably 1%.
Yeah.
If that, you know, because how many of us have tanks like Predatory Fins and Ohio Fish Rescue and Joey's 2000, Corey's 800, which I think Corey's 800 is only like 7 feet long. Who has tanks that big? Most people don't. So,
well, it's an investment. They're expensive.
Absolutely.
And I was like, this fish might have only been $75, but it's like completely priceless to me. So I will do whatever I can. And hopefully I always try to find something well before I feel like he's outgrown it. And even now, he still has plenty of turning room, but you're always looking.
Yeah, but you know, what are you going to do? Are you going to go to an 8-foot tank and then a year later be like, well, I got to get them in something bigger? You know, what do you?
No, if I make a jump, it's going to be at least 100 gallons bigger. I'm not going to go through one. It's a lot for me to try to find people to move, because even being Jesse, they're heavy, and I like to think I'm super strong, but when it comes to fish tanks, sometimes they're.
Well, you see that my 360 is not down here, and that's the exact reason. I wish it was, because we could really use that room in the garage now. But yeah, that it's tough moving these big giant glass boxes.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you too, with the filtration, because I have a long air stone, and then the Fluval FX4, I believe is what it is. And I do water changes on this tank probably once or twice a month. Twice if I'm motivated, but at least once. And we've been cleaning the filter, like not cleaning, but just rinsing out the filter like once every 6 months. Do you just do it whenever you remember to do it, or do you have a pretty set schedule? Because I know you do have more fish in your tank, but it doesn't seem like it's it doesn't get as dirty as some as even my just smaller guppy tanks.
Oh yeah, I mean
So
that's a giant body of water, and mine is twice the size of yours. So
uh-huh,
I could get away with doing it even less, even though I do have 6 fish in there, 7
uh-huh,
if you include the pleco. Um, but you know, in a perfect world, I would do changes every week in my tank,
mhm,
just because I would feel better about it. The problem
mhm,
is, who has that kind of time? I mean, and especially now we're running ragged with the
mhm,
website and everything else. So, you know, I'd love to see a day where Lisa and I move our operation into like a commercial setting, and I
mhm,
could have somebody do my water changes for me. And if I could do that, it would be once a week in my big tanks. Right now, I'm doing it about the same as you. You know, I'm doing probably every 2 weeks, and I go big. I go like 50%,
yeah,
and that's in all of my big tanks. That's how I do it. But you know, in a perfect world, actually, it's wrong. In a perfect world, I would have it on an automatic system, and I would just flick a switch, and it would do it. But
mhm,
not there yet. But I think your original question was about filtration, right? Or were you?
uh-huh.
I'm
Just
sorry.
it seems like someone just the bigger tanks are. I was just surprised that they're easier to keep. I knew it was true than keeping a bunch of smaller tanks, but once I had this is the biggest tank I've had. I've had ponds and stuff outside, but inside this is the largest, and they are like way easier to just keep steady. And
Right.
I know with him, like the water quality is so important, but I don't have the problems of water quality as I do downstairs with some of my guppy tanks and some of the other live bear tanks. So I just try to keep track of it, I guess is the question, as best as I can. And when I feel like it's getting a little extra murky, I'll kind of rinse out the filter. But my big thing growing up was I was an over cleaner. I
Mhm.
did water changes weekly, but I had to scrub like all the gravel too and clean out the filter and do all this stuff. And I'm learning that if I kind of step back and sometimes just water change without aquarium vacuum, especially with the guppy tanks with adding like more plants and stuff, is okay.
Mhm.
So I'm always paranoid that I'm not cleaning enough, but sometimes I have to remember to back off because I do too much
Right.
sometimes. So I guess in the question and all of that is I was just curious when you rinsed your filters out.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent and totally
No,
didn't answer the question. It's you could, we're very similar in the way we take care of tanks, because the way you described it is the same way I do it. It's I uh, I I clean the filters out when they need to be cleaned out, and how I know that they need to be cleaned out is when a water change just isn't enough.
uh-huh.
The way I look at it is like, on this tank over here, there's like 20 fish in there, and they're all big slobs, and they eat a lot. And so
Mhm.
when I do a water change, 50% water change,
Mhm.
the tank looks amazing. If it's
Mhm.
like all the fish are floating in air because the water's so clear, then I know the filter is fine. But if I do a
Uh-huh.
water change and 2 days later it's looking murky again, then I know the filter is it's working, but
Mhm.
it needs to be flushed out. So so that's what I do too. And it's the way my filter is set up, there's only so many things that you can get to. So I will take out all of my sponges and stuff, and I just have throwaway sponges in those. So I'll put new sponges in. I don't clean out my biomedia or anything like that. I just rinse it out in a bucket.
Mhm.
But and then probably like once a year, I'll actually go into my sump and like shop vac all of the stuff out of the bottom of the sump. Um,
Okay.
but usually that's, like I said, like once a year. With this one, it was about a year because we set it up in the garage, and then when we moved it down here, I did that. So it was about a year. Um, and I probably should do that more often. But as far as maintaining the filter, it's probably once every couple of 2 or 3 months.
Okay, cool. Well, I feel like I'm doing pretty well.
You know what? It's very true that if your fish are okay, then you're
Mhm.
doing fine. I think
Mhm.
that one of the things, and for somebody in my position that, wants people to watch his videos, you want people to watch your videos. I want people to go to my website and buy products all day long. Of course I do. But I think that there's a lot of overkill in this hobby, a ton of overkill. And, it's overkill in every single aspect of the hobby. And a lot of times that overkill can kind of drive people away from the hobby because it's too much. I can't do this. So we can be our own worst enemies sometimes. And sometimes we just need to step back and understand we're working with nature, let nature do what it does. And, if you see a problem, then react. But if everything's okay. Oh,
there it goes.
My screen flashed there. Are we still on?
I can see you now. You're good now. I feel like you're good. But who knows? My internet's crazy. Live? Yeah, for the next few minutes at least. But I was going to ask you in the last couple minutes if you had anything video-wise that you wanted to give secrets or anything that's coming out soon to look for or anything like that. Visit your website because your t-shirts are often like the really good t-shirts.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love the t-shirts. We have something really, really big that we're working on, but I can't talk about it at all. All I can say is we're working on something big. It's going to be one of the bigger things we've ever done. And it's going to be super exciting, but I'd get in so much trouble with Lisa if I talk about it. No,
sometimes the tease is worth it. It's like, I'm excited to watch now.
We're not going to be breaking any ground here. We're not going to be pioneering anything, but we're going to be doing something really big that I think will be really big for both the YouTube channel and the website, because people will be able to watch something that's going to be really, really cool on the website, and then they'll be able to spend money on that thing down the road. So it's going to be something that's going to be very exciting. Other than that, my YouTube channel kind of goes in waves. I think every YouTube channel does. Yeah. And we do our 10 things series that I love, and it's wonderful. Sometimes it starts to go a little bit stale, and so I'll move away from top 10 lists and I'll, focus on other things. And then when that goes stale, I'll go back to the top 10 lists. We're actually going to be transitioning back to the top 10 list here soon for a few weeks anyway. Because you got to cause that spark and get things to go. So that'll be happening soon. Got a couple of pretty cool lists that we'll be doing. Other than that, we've got our members only live streams that we do on Thursdays, which have been a lot lot of fun. Yep, yeah, you're on the list.
At some point, hopefully. I'm just having a good because I can't meet and go anywhere right now. There's not as many fish conventions, so doing this is kind of, I don't know, tying me over, and seeing other people's fish rooms and ideas that I wouldn't necessarily think of is really fun and interesting. I like to watch how everybody has it set up and organized, and what they keep and how they keep it and what kind of water they have. And sometimes it's even nice to get just a face with the screen name. So you doing that, I was all excited when you said that. I was like, that's an awesome time.
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, it does get awkward at the end because it's like, okay, what do we do now? But it's been so much fun, and seeing fish rooms that we would have never seen otherwise. And so yeah, that's a good time. We're going to keep going with that. You'll be one of the tours here coming up. So other than that, we're going to keep doing what we're doing because we're having so much fun, and the community is just incredible, as you know. And the support that we've received, Lisa and I feel like rock stars right now. We barely ever leave the house, but we feel like rock stars.
You guys are rock stars.
Well, who would have ever thought that we would be? It's an amazing thing. And like you said, I without YouTube, I think this hobby would have gone stale for so many people, particularly, during this pandemic. So this has been a beautiful thing. I mean, as weird as that sounds, because of course the pandemic is horrible, but it's been it's been beautiful. The fish keeping community kind of coming together the way it has over all of this. That's been a bright side to a tragic thing. So.
Well, and it got me outside my box because, like I said, I've kept fish since I was a little bitty kid, but I always did what my dad said. And my dad knows a lot, but sometimes buying every fish that you think is cool at the fish store and putting it in a 30-gallon tank isn't necessarily the right thing to do.
Like
so going back to
videos.
Going back to school and taking ecology and then working on my experiment and completely stumbling upon this whole community. It was like 5 years ago, I think. Just was like, there's people out there that like fish like me. It's nice to meet you. Because no one in my family except my dad got it, but even I have more of a fish bug than my dad. And just seeing everybody's how they keep it and all these different fish, and just opened up my world that now I was like, there's so many things that I do now that's second nature that I never would have done if it wasn't for completely accidentally finding this community. And I love it.
You know what's so weird about it? I'm not going to go off on a rant here because I think you probably want to cut this off. But what's so weird about it is the industry still hasn't figured that out yet. How vital this community is, the online fish keeping community. The industry still hasn't figured that out, and it's weird. But someday they'll get it. This social media has been the best thing that could ever have happened for fish keeping, as far as I'm concerned. So.
It's
and
just
for me personally.
Everything about it, like even being on YouTube with all the stuff that comes with YouTube, I wouldn't change a thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I put videos out to help as many people as I can, but I honestly think at the end of the day, I learn more from everybody than I can possibly put out there. But I'm just thankful. I'm thankful for accidentally stumbling upon it, being brave enough to be on YouTube, being brave enough to talk and reach out. Like everything about it, I'm just grateful for and thankful. So.
I stumbled upon YouTube too by Googling how to make a overflow for one of my tanks. And I found a Joey Mullen video on YouTube, and my internet was terrible and it took forever to buffer to watch the video. But I watched that guy make that, and I was like, oh, there's people on the internet that do this. And away we go. So yeah, that's the all too common story for sure.
Well, thank you so much for being here and chatting with me. I appreciate it.
Oh, not a problem. It was fun.
Yes, super fun. And thank you again for making videos and putting them on YouTube because I learned so much.
Well, thank you for watching them. I'm happy to do it. I love it.
But thank you guys for being here with me on the chat today. And I will see you hopefully in a video very soon and a live stream next Friday. So thank you guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.